crumpet is... Wait, hang on, I know. A biscuit is a cookie.
Yes.
And then a crumpet is... What's a crumpet?
Oh. It's an English muffin.
Oh. So we call them English muffins, but their real name is a crumpet?
Which makes sense, because otherwise they would just be a muffin there.
Here we just call them muffins. What is
funny?
Wait, what's a biscuit?
A biscuit is a cookie, isn't it?
But what is a biscuit?
Okay,
Like, what do they... Like, if I gave them a biscuit, what would they call it?
Probably a crumpet.
Mount Crumpet.
So maybe they'd call it a...
That's where the Grinch lives.
God damn it.
We learned that in Volume 3. If I said, here, I'm going to give you some biscuits and gravy, would they be like, biscuits and gravy?
One,
You're going to put
probably,
cookies all
they
day?
probably would think we're nuts for pouring gravy on a biscuit. But I think it would be the crumpet, because the crumpet looks like an English muffin. I think that's the closest thing to, like, a biscuit.
Yeah, so they don't have biscuits over there.
I don't think so.
Because when you go to McDonald's, Rachel, do you pick the English muffin or the biscuit?
English muffin.
Oh. The correct answer is the biscuit.
I actually get the McGriddle. I'm not a huge
like
fan of
pancake.
McDonald's anymore, though. I don't really like any of their food. If anything, it would just be the English muffin.
Their breakfast is pretty good.
That's it, though. Yeah, but I don't like anything else. It's overpriced.
The fries? They're all
I don't like their
overpriced
fries.
now. It's ridiculous.
I don't really like the fries. I prefer from other places.
Anyway, crumpets.
Stay
Wait,
tuned
what were we talking about? Okay, so I will say this. I have to say this. I watched this, and I was like, was Charles Dickens, like, a skeptic? Like, they're making it seem like, oh, everyone knows that Charles Dickens was this big skeptic. So then I was like, wait, why?
Did you go down a
is this
rabbit hole
happening?
and just start researching
Yes.
Charles
So then
Dickens?
I started trying to figure out if Charles Dickens was like some guy going around England being like, you see these people are full of shit. There are no mystics. There are no psychics. And that's not true. So I found a Smithsonian article.
Okay.
From Smithsonian Magazine. There was an exhibit a couple years ago that was all about how Charles Dickens really loved ghost stories and shit.
Yes.
He didn't believe in them, but he really enjoyed the idea of ghost stories and stuff. So he attended seances and went to all this, fantasy crap because he thought it was fascinating.
Right.
He wouldn't go and be like, oh, balderdash, there is no such thing as these. Like, he would be like, yeah, they don't...
In what time, like, was that? Was that pre or post The Christmas Carol? Because
I don't know when The Christmas Carol came out.
Yeah, so, like, when did he write it type of thing. So the whole idea is he's just kind of, like, he looks bored with life at this point.
No, I
Does
get
he
it.
start
I
getting,
understand what they're trying to do.
So is it supposed to be like, oh, now after all of this that he's been through with all the ghosty stuff, now he's like, I'm going to go to all these seances and I'm going to do all this and I'm going to try to, like, prove that these things are real. And, like, now it, like, helps to explain his story of being super into ghosts. I mean, they always a lot of the times when Doctor Who takes a person from the past, they do a little spin on it like this, right? To explain something or to have fun with it.
Because I was going to say, I cannot believe that this Doctor Who episode would not be 100% accurate to the historical nature of its subject.
But you don't think that they would also put a little spin on it, either alien or otherwise?
No, I'm on board with that.
Okay.
It's more of I was doing a little bit, you see.
Are you doing a bit? Is that what we're doing? Because I didn't understand that we were doing it a bit at all. Because we don't do bits ever.
No, we don't. That's actually true. You're right. We do not do bits. You know what? I apologize.
We don't
to everyone
pre-write bits.
who thought that we might have been doing a bit. Hello, everybody. I am Kevin.
And I'm Rachel.
And this is Shelf Life. I didn't purposely like the This is Jeopardy that time, and I don't know why, because it has nothing to do with the theme of today's episode.
I don't know.
A podcast where brother and sister team always make sure to release our gas before we get into our human suits.
Why would that be the one that you hit on? Why?
But also, we go through pop culture subjects one at a time in great minutia, scene by scene or page by page. in all types of genres, be that books, TV, music, games, video games, professional wrestling, sports entertainment, or otherwise, to determine whether or not the subject at hand belongs on your shelf. And today we are going back to merry old England to continue with something that we started back in volume 3 to discuss the next chapter of this particular television show. Rachel, what is being discussed today?
We are talking about Doctor Who Series 1, Part 2. So that would be episodes...
Espetodes 3 through 5.
It would be episodes 3 through 5. And starting us off, we're going to be talking about the Unquiet Dead.
Yes, we are starting here, episodes 3. So, for those that don't scroll down past the play button on your podcast app of choice, it will show you the time codes for each episode that we're covering here. But yes, we are covering The Quiet Undead, we are covering Aliens of London and World War III.
Yes.
In this episode of Shelf Life. But we're starting here with The Quiet Undead, so I'll have to remind myself where we're at here in the Doctor Who-universe, where we just got done with Rose and the Doctor going to the future, seeing the world blow up, and now the Doctor was like, how about the past? Fantastic! And now we're going to go to the past. Rachel?
It's like the Mad Hatter at this point for you.
What happens? What is The Quiet Undead about?
The Quiet Undead takes us back to...
I keep saying The Quiet Undead, and it's the Unquiet Dead.
God damn it, Kevin.
I'm sorry. I know, I'm just ruining it for everyone.
The Unquiet Dead takes us back to 1869.
What a year!
In Victorian Cardiff. Rose and the Doctor come across Charles Dickens and some ghostly activity.
Yeah, there's some supernatural ghost spooky stuff going on.
Yeah.
So this episode aired on April 9th, 2005, directed by Eros Lynn and written by Mark Gatiss. Mark Gatiss writing it because he was a fan of A Christmas Carol, wanted to do something that was like A Christmas Carol, and they brought in the Charles Dickens to kind of play him. Simon Callow is the actor playing Charles Dickens in this one. He wasn't sure about doing it because he thought that like most of the time in Doctor Who it was like somebody was always mentioned in the past, but they never like actually portrayed a fictional character, or they didn't portray them like that often.
Sure.
It was more like the Doctor would be like, oh, he did stuff with
like
John F. Kennedy or whatever.
Yeah. So this is like actually when they start to incorporate real people
Past
from the
stuff.
past into
Yeah.
the show, which is actually kind of interesting. I think it's kind of fun.
I don't have a problem with it. I think it just makes it so that like the Doctor does find himself in like all of these situations.
Right.
And well, we'll get into it when we get into the walkthrough. Because I was thinking about it and I was like, oh, the Doctor really... Is the TARDIS leading them on a bit of like these places where these like issues are arising across time and space? Because he's always wrong about where they're going. He never gets it right. And he never knows what's happening. And as a Time Lord... Okay, all right.
I'm going to say yes and no. Yeah. Because it does feel like it's almost leading them to areas or times
that have been affected.
That the Doctor needs to be there, right?
Yeah, I have a thought there. Yeah.
Okay.
So
our TARDISes are grown, so it's a living thing technically.
They're grown?
Yes.
Okay. Whatever. I mean, I guess it's no dumber. Like in Marvel, Rachel, you haven't read these comics yet, but there's the character Phantom X, who's kind of a Diabolique knockoff.
Okay.
But he has a TARDIS called Eva, and it's like his ship.
Familiar. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it's the same idea. So I can't. Yeah. I like Phantom X. Those X-Force books that we'll do one day are very, very good. But anyway,
I don't know if it was like intentional at this point. It might have been, considering like the full arcs and stuff that they roll with in the series. No, I can see what you're saying. I mean, it's only episode 3, so.
Yeah. It's episode 3 of something that you're like reintroducing to people after like 20 years or whatever. So
right.
Let's get right into the Unquiet Dead. I even wrote the Quiet Undead on my notes, is what the episode was called. So I'm just wrong everywhere.
I mean, that's kind of interesting. Maybe the title actually means something too, because it's the Unquiet Dead, and they're not undead. So it's not like a zombie situation, which it kind of leads you into thinking at first.
Well, right, because they're dead and they're unquiet as opposed to being undead, like a zombie.
Right.
Although I would argue that they are kind of zombies.
They're not, I mean, but there's something using them as a vessel. Anyway, let's get into it first. We're getting too far ahead.
Okay. So it starts with an undertaker in 1869 Cardiff, like we said. He is starting a lamp, and a man in the funeral hall that this undertaker has is mourning his deceased grandmother. The undertaker says, like, well, you know, she's not really gone. She's merely sleeping. So, like, trying to, like, comfort this man and stuff. Right. And the guy asks for some time to just kind of, like,
mourn.
Alone to just kind of mourn.
Yeah.
So the undertaker leaves, and as he does, the woman's face, the grandma's face in the coffin, glows blue.
Yes.
I think, like, there's, like, some whooshing sounds or something like that. Like, correct me if I'm wrong on that, Rachel.
I would say kind of like whooshing. Yeah. Gaseous.
Yeah.
Like
gaseous sounds, yeah. And she awakens, looks like a zombie. She's got, like, the white eyes with, like, the little pupils, and she starts choking her grandson to death. The undertaker walks back in and tries to put the lid on the coffin.
And it's like, not again. And it's like,
yes.
Like, knew it was going to happen.
Oh, no. Not again. Yeah. He's nonplussed about a corpse coming back to life and murdering the grandson in front of him.
Yeah, he's used to it.
Yeah, we find out that he is used to it. She breaks free from the coffin and then walks off into a snowy night.
Yes. Screaming.
With a light coming out of her mouth. It was at this point where, like, okay, there's a lot of CGI in these two episodes. There is. This isn't as bad because, like, it's mostly, like, mist and stuff when we talk about the next couple of episodes.
Yeah, because this is, like, the glowy, misty stuff is going to be CGI. Like, the actual, like, makeup on the characters, though. Where it's, like, the eyes and, like, the veins and, like, making them look kind of dead and stuff. That's real.
There was something about the score in this first scene. I like it further on in, but at this point it was a little too like something about it to me.
That's fair.
Like, if you're watching, Rachel, play the score and see what you think.
In the first scene?
Yeah, like when she's walking down the street in the snow.
Yeah, because they're trying to make it a little like doodle 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 doodle, and then it's like got the humming on top of that, and so they're just trying to make it eerie, that eerie Christmassy.
It comes off as like a little too fantastical for me or something. I don't know. There's something about it, and then the theme comes in, so that's like our cold open to the episode, and then you get the dun 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 and all that stuff.
We're back in the time vortex.
Is that what it is? The time vortex? Okay.
Yes.
So, no,
have we not talked about that?
I'm sure we did. It was a while back.
Yeah, the space-time vortex.
Oh yeah, I think you did. You did mention that. Okay.
Okay.
So
I was like, all of a sudden, I'm like, am I saying the wrong thing? Am I getting it confused with Interstellar? Like, oh god, like.
Oh god, I'm getting it confused with Interstellar again. We go to the TARDIS. The doctor is asking Rose for some assistance and says, let's go to 1860. Because he's like, you got to see the future, let's see the past. And now, I did wonder, because they end up going to 1869, was there something specific in 1860 that he wanted to show? Because he said they were going to go to Naples in 1860.
Maybe he was thinking of something specific, or he was just like, random time and random place. We'll go Naples night 1860 and see what happens. I don't know. Did something happen in 1860 in Naples?
I don't know. Do we have to look that up now?
I don't know.
On Christmas?
I feel like we might have to.
The only thing that's going to come up is this episode. The Unquiet Dead. That's the first thing that came up. I just figured he thought maybe it would be more of a more scenic than going to Cardiff. The way that they treat Cardiff in this episode, because they're like the doctor at least is like Cardiff.
Yeah,
like, they kind of act like, damn it. I don't know.
Well, maybe he's getting sick of London. Cardiff. Maybe he's just like sick of England. Yeah. He's like, you know what? I wanted to go to Naples.
I've never been to Cardiff, so I can't like speak to it. But like they do kind of like take a couple of shots at Cardiff.
Yeah, they definitely poo-poo on it. It's kind of funny.
Which I think is where the show is shot, so maybe that's part of the joke too.
It could be
a little inside joke.
Yeah.
But for our Cardiff listeners, let us know: is it like a they're poking fun at us, mother, or is Cardiff like a punchline, like how we were talking about Cleveland on the Major League episode?
Oh yeah, it could be. I don't know. I'm like actually curious now because I feel like I do this every time I'll watch it and go, is it like a crap hole? Is that what they think it is? Or
well, no, I'm not going to call it a crap hole.
I don't know. It could be. They're like, yes, actually, that's exactly what we think. Thank you for acknowledging it.
It is a crap hole. Thank you. Yes, it is. Okay, so they head there. And she asks why 1860, and he says, I don't know why, let's find out. But I figured he was just being coy because he's the doctor.
It's absolutely possible. I actually don't know the answer to that question.
We go back to the Undertaker's mortuary, and he's asking for Gwyneth, who is this maid-looking person. I think she's like a servant girl. She's a servant girl. She just does the laundry and the cleaning.
Maybe you're right.
He tells her that the stiffs are getting lively again. Which tells you that this has happened before, yes. that this is not an unusual. Well, at least it's happened enough that like they have like a terminology for it, and it's happens.
And then it sounds like she's almost blaming him too when she's just like, "This can't keep going on." Like, what are you doing?
I thought
like, is he a mad scientist?
That he's like doing stuff to these bodies to like make them reanimate or something. Yeah, just the way that she acts. That's not what happens. Right.
I think it was literally just so he could say, "It's not my fault. I don't know what's going on."
Yeah, it's like to make it so that he isn't the problem, so that he isn't the one doing it. So he says they've got to go find her, and that she's 86. She can't have gotten far. So
I don't know. She choked out her grandson. We don't even know if he's dead or alive.
Like, choke this guy, like break his neck or whatever. And then Gwen says that it's getting beyond now. She's like so like put up with it. Like, we have to go do this again? It's so unusual, but I get like it's clearly supposed to make it seem like, this is like a regular occurrence with these people.
Right. I don't know how many times, but definitely enough.
And she says that something terrible is happening in the house, and Undertaker, who's Mr. Sneed, I think we find out is his name, which is the most English name of all time.
Which just makes me think of Mr. Smee.
Yeah, like it is a very like,
Captain Hook
Mr. Sneed. They're going to do something as soon as they can catch Grandma. The TARDIS arrives, and she tries to wrap her head around the idea that she could only see this day once. Like, there's only one Christmas Day or Christmas Eve in 1860 in this location one time, but the doctor can go and watch it as many times as he wants. Yes. He can do whatever he wants.
It's like a moment happens and then it's over, but the doctor can go back
him, that's not how it,
and enjoy the moment again.
She says like that. No wonder you're like always on the go, because you can see whatever you want, so you can always kind of like go wherever you feel like. And it feels like she's flirting with him here. I think again, it's just the way that Billie Piper plays it.
I think it's both.
You think so?
She's got a kind of a flirty personality, but I think she kind of is flirting with him.
I don't like that. I'm not a big fan.
I don't like stuff later on.
Oh boy. Okay. Like, all right. I am not one of these youngins that is like, I don't want any romance or sex in any of my stuff.
Well, I don't know
That's
about
not
sex,
what I'm saying.
but...
That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying more like, I don't think the dynamic between them should ever be a will they, won't they. It doesn't feel like that should be their relationship.
Are you just saying in general of the doctor and the companion?
And his companion.
Or are you just saying these two specific people?
In particular, these two. I've not seen the rest of it, so I can't say, but I don't feel like that should be their dynamic.
Okay.
I might be wrong about that. Maybe I'll change my mind as we watch these. At this point, I feel like that's not the dynamic.
Sure. And maybe at this point that isn't how she sees him. That's not how he sees her, type of thing. Right? And then it is just her flirty personality. Yeah. And that's just how they talk to each other, and it's just kind of playful and fun and exciting. So maybe that's what it is. All right. That's fine.
Yeah, well, we'll see. We'll find out. Rachel's slow
I
reveals
feel like
stuff.
I can't tell anything because there's like another thing that happens this one that's not like till later that I'm like, oh, this is the first time that I'm like, but I can't. Do I say it? I'm like, should I just let Kevin like have it revealed to him?
I think you should let me experience it.
Okay, so I won't say anything until a certain point, I guess.
Yeah.
That's why this is hard because it's like I know these stories very well.
Sure. Yes. This is one of those where I do not know anything you do. So, yeah. He tells her she needs to change outfits. She can't go out dressed in her, like, hoodie and jeans because it's 1816 and people will think she's a witch or something.
Sure, it'll be, like, weird and...
Oh my god, what is that? We gotta burn her!
Women in jeans. Blasphemy.
Jeans went around. Yeah. My god, she's...
It's so inappropriate.
Yeah, they think she's a witch.
Probably. Burn her.
He gives crazy instruction on where to get the wardrobe. So he's like, turn left, then turn right, then 3 doors down. So, like, to tell you, like, the TARDIS is big.
Yeah, it's like it's a giant ship.
Idea.
If you think of it that way. Yeah.
The Undertaker is back with Gwen, and he is trying to ask her to use the sight.
Yes.
And if she doesn't use the sight to try to figure out where the grandma went, she's fired. So he's apparently... I mean, you can tell here, like, she's some sort of psychic, or she can, like, sense beings or ghosts or something.
Yeah, she's got some connection to, like, a plane, right? That's kind of, like, the way I would say it.
But the fact that she's, like, hesitant to use it would kind of mean that, like...
And she's, like, uncomfortable. She like, knows then.
Yeah.
So it's something that she's probably lived with.
Like, to have to be threatened to be, like, fired with it, like, yeah, then it has to be something like that. She says the old lady is lost and alone, and there's so many strange things in her head. Before she passed, she was going to go see him, and she thinks that she's going to go see him tonight. Like, well, she didn't get a chance to go see him, so she wants to go see him tonight. So that's where she's headed. And then we find out who the him is, because the next scene is Charles fucking Dickens. Here we go.
That's right.
Charles Dickens.
Him and his crazy-ass beard.
Getting ready to go on stage. The beard is pretty accurate, Rachel.
I do love it. Yeah.
I went down my rabbit hole of Charles Dickens, and I was like, oh, they got him pretty well on. Now, folks at home, you go look up a rendering of Charles Dickens. This man had some crazy fucking hair going on. I don't even know. I can't even explain it.
It's almost clownish, the way it, like, points on the sides and stuff.
It's kind of bozo
hair.
Yeah. I was going to call it a skullet, but it is kind of bozo
devil's beard,
hair.
But it's floofy.
Oh, like big floofy beard. At first, Rachel, I was like, is this Michael Gambon? And then I realized it was Simon Callow. It's got kind of that look to it. Dumbledore.
Oh. It kind of does, almost. That same,
they have that same, because they have the same eyes.
Yeah, those, like, sunken eyes. I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Charles Dickens, very brooding in this scene. It's Christmas Eve and he's alone.
Yeah, he even says he's brooding. Is it because, like, his wife either died or is gone at this point? I don't know a lot of Charles Dickens' history.
Well, let me tell you,
All right,
Rachel.
tell me more.
He had a wife they divorced, which for, like, the middle 1800s, like, what happened there? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, that's
he had a mistress. And he was with this woman. I don't think they ever got married, but he was with this woman until they died.
Okay.
I was trying to figure out, like, did he actually have some sort of family issues that they're pulling on? And I couldn't find anything, like, concrete other than the fact that, like, he, had a wife and then he had this, like, mistress or whatever.
Sure. Which might, What?
I guess I should make sure that, like, Charles Dickens' wife didn't die, because it's the middle 1800s, and that's... You're
just
died
sullying
if, you
his name now, saying that he had a mistress.
No, I think it was. Like, Ellen Ternan was an actress that caught his eye in 1857. Mm-hmm. Since Ellen Ternan also destroyed all of his letters to her, the extent of the affair between the two remains speculative. So he was having an affair with this woman.
Right, yeah. It does sound like it.
Dickens' daughter stated that the two had a son who died in infancy. There's no contemporary evidence of that. Dickens settled an annuity on Turnen, which made her financially independent. During the same time, Dickens furthered his interest in the paranormal, becoming one of the early members of the Ghost Club, whatever that is.
I think the Ghost Club is the thing you were talking about, where they would go to seances and stuff. And
yeah,
to get together to do,
right.
like, spooky things. But this is probably, like, later, much later, I would assume. But, like, the Winchester woman, when she was, like, pretty much a part of that, too, and she was kind of went a little crazy and had seances, like, every night and stuff, too.
He married Catherine Hogarth Dickens in 1836, and then I'm trying to find when they divorced, or whatever happened, because it definitely says that he was married to Catherine Hogarth until 1858, but he was with Ellen Ternan in 1857, so that should probably tell you what happened there. So I wonder if that's what they're drawing upon.
It could be.
I can't find 1857 though on this list.
I mean, the guy does come in and goes, "Well, you could take my wife," and he's just like, "I probably shouldn't do that." Like,
there's some like dude, some like stagehand or something that's like coming to tell him like, "You're on in 5, Mr. Dickens," or whatever. Oh, divorce would have been scandalous for someone of his fame. After publicly accusing Catherine of not loving their children and suffering from a mental disorder, statements that disgusted his contemporaries, including Elizabeth Barrett Browning, Dickens attempted to have Catherine institutionalized. Wow. When this scheme failed, they separated.
Wow.
Catherine left, never to see her husband again, taking with her one child. Her sister Georgina, who stayed at Gad's Hall, raised the other children.
Oh my god.
So yes, apparently
I want a
he
divorce.
did have
you know
a
what?
bit of
You're
issues.
nuts. You're crazy. I'm gonna get you institutionalized.
Well, because you can't get a divorce. Because that's what I thought too. I was like,
Sounds
you can't get
right.
a divorce in the 1850s.
Well, they'd institutionalize women in like those things for anything.
Yeah, and you can't, like, how are you going to get a divorce in 1857?
Very true.
Like, get out of here.
That's very true.
You'd be better off murdering the woman.
Probably. Honestly, at that point.
I don't know what happened to her. She's gone.
She just died. She just disappeared. Poof.
It seems about right. I think we can check this one off the list. You have yourself a nice day, Mr. Dickens. Okay, so they must be playing off of that, because he is alone on Christmas, and he's been clumsy with family matters, and he's too old to cause any trouble at this point. The stagehand is like, well, it's never too, like, you're never, like, too old or anything to kind of, like, come up with a new idea or anything like that. And he says, no, I am. Like, his life just goes on, and he does the same old show all the time. He's a ghost condemned to repeat this same routine for eternity.
That sounds like a real line from him, honestly.
Well, it's very theatrical.
Yes.
And his imagination grows stale. He says, perhaps I've thought everything I'll ever think. So he's like just this bitter and old man, and he doesn't think he has anything else to say. Yeah. Meanwhile, the Doctor is checking on the TARDIS as Rose comes back dressed in Dickensian gear. Like, this is where we get the term Dickensian from, is this period of time and in this area. So she's dressed in like this all-black getup with like a red long skirt, I think is the idea, right?
Yeah,
like
she's got like a corset on with like a cape.
A corset and a cape, you know.
Her hair's all dolled up and everything.
The Doctor says that she's beautiful, pointing out the potential will they won't they, I guess, between the Doctor and Rose. And he says, considering. And she goes, considering what? And he goes, well, that you're human. So,
right.
He's an alien that, I don't know, does he want some sort of like, well, he wanted the tree. Him and the tree were going to fuck in the last episode.
I kind of assume that the Doctor's a bit promiscuous and doesn't really care what species you are.
Is he worse than, like James Kirk? Are we talking, like...
I think he's a bit more subtle than Kirk. I would think that he's a bit more,
yeah, he's a little more on the sly.
And sly about it, but he's kind of like...
No, he's not as sleazy as James
He's not sleazy.
Kirk.
He's just, he's probably picky.
Yeah. He's probably still pissed off he didn't get with that tree. That was the plan.
He's probably upset. That's gotta be part of it.
Do you know how many Time Lords get to say that they slept with a tree? You took this from me, skin flap. So anyway.
Skin flap. I love that.
She walks out, and because she wants to be the first person to, like, walk out of the TARDIS. So she walks out and she steps into the snow. Mm-hmm. And she takes her time doing it because I think she's trying to, like, savor the moment of, like, being in the past and getting to live in the past here.
Yes.
And the Doctor and her go hand in hand down the street. Dickens takes the stage to perform A Christmas Carol, and we see the zombie grandma in the audience.
Yeah, kind of. She like looks very obvious, but I guess people are kind of
She
just
does
like
look
in
pretty
their
obvious.
own, zone.
Well, that and it's 1869,
And everybody probably
everyone
looks
looked
sickly.
like grim death.
Yeah.
Rachel, mid to late 1800s England, the dirtiest, disgustingest place.
No, you're
humanly
right.
possible. There's
You're
just
right.
shit all over the sidewalk.
Probably literally.
Like Rose should have stepped out and gone, "Oh, I was not prepared for the smell." Like that should have been her reaction.
There's going to be some times when that does happen.
Okay,
I think.
at least
I
want to
say that does happen. I also might be thinking of Game of Thrones when they're just throwing poop out the window, but same idea.
They did that then!
Yes.
Folks at home, correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that someone threw some poop out the window in Victorian England. Rose just terribly bashing the country's history. They were throwing shit out the window in the States too.
Yeah, oh yeah,
let's
probably.
Let's not be.
That's obvious.
The streets of New York are still covered in shit
Just
from
that
300 years
thick
ago.
Layers.
Oh, just layers of it. Anyway, at the same time, the Doctor grabs a paper and he realizes that it's 1869 and it's not Naples, it's Cardiff. He says like it's 1869. She's like, "I don't care," and he says something else and she goes, "I don't care." And then he says it's Cardiff, and she gives him like a dirty look. so I think that's the joke there.
Right.
I got the flight a bit wrong.
I don't care.
It's not 1860, it's 1869.
I don't care.
It's not Naples.
I don't care.
It's Cardiff.
Right.
But I think she's just living in the moment. It's just exciting just being in the past period.
Yeah, that she's somewhere else.
Yeah.
Which I would be too. Like, of course you would
It's like,
be.
oh, so we're
Now-
off by a few years. Who cares? Like, whatever.
Right.
This is exciting. It's exhilarating.
For the folks at home, if you ever do travel in the back in time, which I think is like you couldn't do. You can go forward in time, but you can't go back, according to interstellar rules. But we don't have a TARDIS, so we don't know.
Yeah, TARDIS and
But if
Time
we-
Lords, I would imagine it's a bit more wibbly-wobbly, but we'll find out.
Right. So if you can end up going back in time, then, and I'm going to say this every time time travel comes up where somebody goes to the past, you have to bring with you iodine, a water filter, and some sort of like mask or air purifier for yourself.
Yeah.
Because otherwise you will drop dead within
Probably.
minutes.
It's kind of true.
Because
I think it would.
You can't drink anything. You can't eat
Right.
anything.
No.
You can't breathe a lot of the air. At least from this period. Like, from beforehand, you probably can breathe some of the air because it's, like, not polluted. But when you get into this period of time when it's super polluted, you'd come back with cancer. Like, you're coming back with cancer. Rose has cancer. She's getting cancer from riding in this TARDIS.
She's getting something. She's getting something from writing this TARDIS.
On a more theoretical level, Rachel, this is where I was wondering, and it comes up in the next episode too. So we can talk about it now. We can talk about it in the next episode. Where
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out because he screws up in the next episode too, of where they're supposed to be and what time they're supposed to be at. And then I wondered because as a Time Lord, I
Well, he
figured
got where right. He just didn't get the time right.
No, he got where right. The next
The
time
next
he gets
time,
where
yes.
right. Yeah, I was curious if it's being pulled, like you said, to places that the Doctor needs to be, because as a Time Lord, I would have thought he has some control over... He knows what's going to happen in the future, right?
Mm-hmm.
But...
Yes. Again,
Well, he says that the future can change. At the drop of a hat, the future can change.
Yes, at the drop of the hat, the future it can change. So even if like something happens in the past, it can change the future. Blah 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 blah. But I don't think he knows everything. Like we talked about this last time, where it was like, well, how does he know how to like do everything? Like, doesn't he know how to like how the ship works? Because he should know everything. He doesn't know everything. It's kind of all happening in his head all at the same time. So it's probably not going to be like the easiest thing to decipher, I would imagine.
Okay. Because I was wondering if it's something where, like, anomalies pop up. Because later on, we find out
Also,
that
I
these
think that's
spirits were...
part of it, too. In
Okay.
That's how I always kind of looked at it, was like the anomaly thing. I feel like they have to be anomalous.
And I guess to your point, with him saying the future can always change.
Well, the future can change, but there are points that are, like, fixed as well.
They're canonized or something, sure. Because I wondered if the future can change, like, and we'll talk about that in the next one, like, is that why he thinks, like, oh, it could actually just be the first time humans are meeting aliens or whatever. But in this one, I thought, like, okay, these guys mentioned the Time War, so I wondered if whatever's that Time War is, which they mentioned in the last one, which, like, wiped out his race, or his species, now it's kind of dragging him to these places where, like, these things got, like, whatever beings were, like, you know, got caught up in this time war, if they got dispersed across the time and space, and now he's kind of being dragged into those
kind of a fun
directions.
That's like a fun way to, like, think about it. That, like, during the time war, stuff got, like, shot into different times and spaces.
Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
And now, like, the TARDIS kind of, even if he picks an area, like, around where, like, something could be happening, the TARDIS kind of pulls
it's
it
like,
a little bit.
But if you go this way a little bit more, you got something you can fix.
Yeah, like, he has to fix these problems now from it or something.
Sure.
Just a thought.
It's an interesting thought. I like that thought. It's kind of fun.
Dickens is giving the one-man story or show or whatever you want to call it of A Christmas Carol, and he's getting into the part talking about Marley's face on the door handle.
The knocker.
Yes, the knocker. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And you're welcome. As he gets to Marley's face, he sees the blue-faced zombie, and he points it out, because he's like, oh, it's that! It looked like that!
Like, that's what I imagined, actually.
I was glad that the second time that I watched this for the show to, like, take notes, I put the subtitles on. Because there were a couple of points where I could not tell what Rose was saying.
This episode, I felt like, did have a little bit more of mumbling. And just kind of, like, your words would just, like, flow into the other, and I'm like, whoa, hold up. Try that again.
Yeah. He says, what phantasmagoria is this?
Phantasmagoria.
Yeah, so what does that word mean, Rachel?
Phantasmagoria is a sequence of real or imaginary images like those seen in a dream. Phantasmagoria.
Okay, so a Dickens-esque word there for everyone.
It does feel like one, yes. I like it. I like that word, phantasmagoria. It's kind of fun to say.
Phantasmagoria. Verisimilitude, phantasmagoria. We're just learning all sorts of stuff on our journey.
Verisimilitude. That's right.
The zombie shrieks as the blue leaves her face, and then the audience panically leaves as the Undertaker and Gwen walk in. The Doctor and Rose hear, and they come running, because the Doctor's like, ooh, something's happening, somebody screamed, so he has to, like, run in, of course. There are some okay effects here with the blue, but it does look very British. I felt the British videotape a lot more in this episode than I did in the previous one.
Sure.
It wasn't
It could be the coloring, like, because it's, like, from the past and
coloring.
stuff too. So it might be the way that they taped it.
Yeah, it could be.
To give it more of, like, that look. A lot of the times when they have, like, that ghostly air come out, I think they're using, like, lighting effects too. Like, in the next one, they use that so much more, but yeah.
Yeah, that could definitely do it. And I just said that it just looks British. Like, there's something about this scene that just looks so British.
I mean, you are kind of, like, in a theater and everything.
Oh, I get it. I mean, like, at a superficial level, like, above the fact that they're British actors and it's set in
Cardiff, it is very British. I don't know what you want me to say.
No, but I'm just saying, like I looked at it and I was like, it looks like a British production.
Sure.
I guess I should say. Dickens thinks it was the Doctor, because it's like, here comes this strange man wearing a leather jacket. This guy has to be like a charlatan. Rose sees the Undertaker and Gwen taking the body out, and she goes after them because she thinks, like, they must have something to do with it, because, like, why else would they be taking the zombified grandma out?
Right, the screaming woman that, like, caused all of this.
The Doctor says to Dickens, I'm the Doctor, by the way, and Dickens says he looks more like a Navi.
I think like a
whatever that
like
is.
A Navy person, maybe?
I don't know, because there's two V's in it. And
yeah, well, they
it's
always
not Navi
add,
like the
a
Avatar
letter.
Navi.
I hope it's not a
That's
Navi
true.
like that, because he's not blue.
They do tend to add letters to a lot of their shit.
A Navi, with two V's, is a laborer employed in the excavation and construction of road, railroad, or canal.
Okay.
There you go.
So, yeah. So he looks like a laborer.
There you go. I'm going to be looking up all the words.
Well, we have to because we're stuck in 1869 with Charles Dickens. So
That's also true.
Rose realizes that the old lady is dead, and then before she could do anything, the Undertaker chloroforms her down.
Yes. He just takes her immediately.
Which in 1869, I think you were legally allowed to do to any woman on the street that wasn't with her husband.
Sadly.
I think that was just a law.
Yeah, it's the law. If she's alone, you chloroform her.
It's the law in some countries still, I think.
Probably. God, that's so sad.
And the Undertaker justifies this by saying that she saw too much and get her in the hearse. So she's actually kidnapped now. So now she's actually kind of like a damsel in distress.
She is.
As a companion,
bit of a situation.
I think they were trying to avoid doing damsel in distress stuff, but I mean, you can.
Well, I feel like you could.
The companion's
still
just
do
human,
that, though.
so
Yeah, they're human. I feel like anybody could get kidnapped and have to either need help or be a part of the help. You know, she's being taken to where they need to be too. So
it's advancing the plot. Damn it! The doctor realizes that these things are made of gas. Dickens gets pissed at the doctor for ruining the show, I think, and pulling a prank. He thinks that, like, the doctor pulled a prank, and I think it's like, you ruined my show.
It does seem that way.
He tries to steal a coach, and then Dickens is like, you can't, like, that's my coach. Like, that car is here to take me. First you ruined my show,
then you're taking my coach. Like, what the hell is up with this right now?
And the doctor in his Bugs Bunny fashion is like, well, then get in too, and we'll take the coach. The driver's like, do you want me to take care of it, sir? And the doctor realizes it's Charles Dickens, and he calls him brilliant, and he says that he loves all of his stuff. And he's like, oh, and I love that one. What's the one about the ghost? And he's like, A Christmas Story, because he's like, yeah, you probably love the same shit everyone loves. And he says, no, not the turn signal.
The Signal Man?
The Signal Man, yeah. And I think that kind of convinces him that, like, he is, like, a big fan.
Right, he's
so
like,
he's like,
you're not just saying, like, the big ones. You're saying, like, something.
Yeah. So then he says that he's, like, his number one fan, and he tries to explain to him what a fan is. And he's like, you don't look like a fan. And he's like, no, it's fan. It's short for fanatic, yeah.
Yeah.
So Dickens says to chase after the hearse after realizing that Rose has been kidnapped, because he's like, well, then what do you, like, chasing after this hearse for? And he says, like, well, my companion's in there. She's only 19, and I'm sort of in charge of her or whatever.
Yes.
And he's like, well, then what are we doing?
Then he tells him to go faster.
Hearse. Yeah. Which I think is, like, a nice way of, like, showing that Charles Dickens is, like, you know, he's, like,
well, then
up
let's
to
go,
do, like, the right thing. And, like, well, then we have to save her. Like,
obviously.
That kind of stuff. The doctor is pleased. He says, that a boy, Charlie. And Charles Dickens goes, nobody calls me Charlie. And he goes, the ladies do.
Driver, be swift. The chase is on. Yes, sir.
That a boy, Charlie?
Nobody calls me Charlie.
The ladies do.
How do you know that?
I told you, I'm your number one fan.
Which we learned about when I did my little brief synopsis of
right.
that. And Charles goes, how do you know that? And he goes, I told you. And Charles goes, yes, number one fan.
And I like how annoyed he is by it now. He's like, oh, yeah, you're my number one fan.
Right. Which, of course, you would be. Because never, ever, if any of you ever become famous, you should not meet your number one fan. Because they're probably weirdos.
Yeah. Probably.
I'm your number one fan. Because, like, it sounds like in Misery. Because that's the line she uses in Misery.
Like that stalker tone.
They bring Rose into the cadaver room, not knowing what to do with her. Is it my fault if the dead won't stay dead? And Gwyneth is like, of course it's your fault, sir. And, like, it is weird that she, like, blames him when she's the one that can, like, psychically figure this stuff out, but whatever. Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to tell, like, what's going on. I think she just thinks, like, why aren't you trying to stop it? You're just, like, letting it happen, and then you bury them anyways. Like, what are you doing about it?
They leave Rose in the room. The lights kind of moan. The lights, like, on the walls, which are, like, these gas lamps.
Yes.
Gas lamp lights. Still kind of cool. Be kind of cool to have those. Totally dangerous, but kind of cool looking.
Yeah, definitely dangerous, but very cool. Having just, like, the gas lamps through the walls.
The Undertaker thinks maybe they'll be able to get the bishop to come down and do an exorcism for the place. because the bishop's nephew, he did a good job of like cleaning him up for after like he died or something. Like I didn't catch all of it, but like it was something like that, which I thought was a nice little touch, a nice little aside there.
Oh, made his nephew look like a cherub in like a fortnight.
Yeah.
So he did him a favor.
Yeah. The grandson becomes a zombie. And as the grandson and the grandma kind of wake up and start trying to attack Rose, and I thought, okay, come on, Rose. Just, like, stab them with something. Like, you can tell they're zombies. She throws something at them, Shaun of the Dead style.
Yeah, she does do
like that. She just kind of throws something.
I mean, there's not, like, something that's stabby in the room. Is there something stabby? Like, you're in a room that you just woke up in. You have no idea what's in there. 2, now that you got 2 people who are looking like zombies running after you, just grab the closest thing. Where's the stabby stuff?
All right, that's fine. All right, the first thing I would do is probably throw something. The second thing is wear something stabby. In the meantime, Dickens is trying to force his way in because he's like, well, it doesn't, all men is the night, the dead die whenever they want.
Right.
So I should be let in. I wrote down, "Are you all right?" Oh, because when the grandson wakes up, Rose does like a, "Are you all right?"
Yeah, she like turns and looks at him, and he like wakes up, and she says, "Are you all right?"
Which I feel like is just every British person. Like if
you see anything weird, you're like, "You okay there?"
Yeah, it reminded me of Shaun of the Dead, where they're like, "Are you all right?" Like it just, I feel like if a zombie apocalypse actually happened, every British person would
look at the zombie, and go, "You all right? You all right?"
Whereas
there,
an
mate?
American's reaction would be, "Holy shit!
Get your guts!"
Meanwhile, the British was, "You all right?"
Like, do you need a cup of tea? Make you a cuppa.
Dickens forces his way in. The doctor thinks something's inside the walls, something's inside the gas pipes, and is living in there. They rush into the room to let...
Because they hear Rose screaming.
Yeah, to let Rose out. So they actually open the door because the zombies actually like grab her, and then they're able to get in like right after they grab her. He takes Rose back. And then Dickens thinks that this is all a prank. So again, Charles Dickens, skeptic, is he's like Penn and Teller.
Well, it's one of those things where it's like
if he was alive now, would he have a show on HBO talking about like, now I'm going to decipher all these things for you?
I think you're taking it a little extreme. It's one of those things where he's just trying to match logic to it. He goes, "There's no way this is actually supernatural stuff."
Sure, he wants to be proven wrong at every turn. They have to prove that it is real.
Yeah,
which is fine.
So I guess he is skeptical in that sense, but I don't know if it's like, let me show you how you did this trick.
Yeah.
Type of skeptic, maybe.
The zombies say that they want a rift open. Like they shoot out of the bodies and they become these like blue phantom looking things.
Yes.
And they start talking to the group and they say they want a rift open to be able to live. They're dying and they're in the gas. And then they exit and the bodies collapse.
Yes. I do like when Rose says, "Who's your friend?" And he goes, "Charles Dickens." She goes, "All right."
Yeah, yes, yeah. She just goes, "Okay."
Like, it's like, you know what, that's fine. Yep, I'm getting used to this now, I think.
That's fine, whatever. The last few days have just been just insane, so why not?
Why not add Charles Dickens to it?
Rose accuses the Undertaker of copping a feel, because now they're all in a tea room or something, and she's yelling at the Undertaker for kidnapping her.
Yes.
And she basically says, like, "Oh, I bet you felt me up when I was knocked out, didn't you pervert?" She doesn't say that in those many words, but she does kind of say that. The Undertaker comes clean as having a haunted house. So he says that it's always been considered a haunted house, which for him is good business, because, like, you're gonna,
it's for the dead anyways, so why
cemetery.
not then?
Yeah. Or a haunted mortician or whatever. 3 months back, the Stiffs started getting restless. And they started kind of rising from the dead. And Dickens thinks he's full of shit. This doctor, Rachel, very impatient man.
Yeah, he's very
much
impatient.
Very much thinks that he knows, like, his shit doesn't stink. Like, he thinks that he knows more than everybody else. He says, if you're going to deny it, don't waste my time and just shut up.
Yep.
And he has this attitude a lot of just thinking,
He
like,
does.
I know better than everybody.
Yes.
It's very off-putting.
But that is kind of in that his personality, yes.
Okay.
Kind of a dick.
It's kind of, not gonna lie, the Doctor, kind of a dick.
At least this one.
The rift is getting wider, is what the Doctor hypothesizes, and that's why the more of this stuff is kind of coming through. And then that this whole house is a weak point between time and space. So like, he's trying to explain that like ghost stories are usually when there's a weak point between time and space, and you're able to kind of see things that really shouldn't be there because they're like caught in some sort of whatever. So then you kind of see like a ghost or something, and it's really just this like interdimensional being or something like that.
Right. It's like the crossover of two worlds.
Yeah.
And you're kind of just seeing like a shadow.
Yeah. Dickens, in the meantime, like when he's telling the speech, is on the mission of trying to debunk it. So he goes in another room and starts inspecting one of the lamps, and then he goes by the coffin and he starts trying to see if like the body is really dead. And then he's looking for strings and wires, and the Doctor comes over and is like checking for strings. And
I mean, he does work in the theater, so I
That's
mean,
true.
maybe that is one of the reasons why he's so skeptical about it. Because he feels like somebody is playing a prank on him, and he's like a theater man, so why wouldn't it be like another company?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, I'm going along the line of you're saying he's a skeptic. I mean, it makes sense. This is where he kind of goes more extreme and is looking actually for all of those pieces.
Yes. No, is this the scene? This is the scene. The Doctor apologizes for telling Charles to shut up, and then he says it produces. Let me explain to you like how this could like be possible, because he's like, these things are gaseous, and the body produces gas when they're dead. Something that's gaseous could go in the dead body and then use it like a vehicle, like a carriage.
Sure.
And this is where they have that conversation, Rachel, because Charles says that he's worried that he has the world wrong. This is where he says he rallied against fantasies, against these supernatural things. So that's where I'm coming from, of saying, like, wait,
Sure.
Did he go around and do this in real life? Like, it doesn't seem that way. It seems more like he was fascinated by it, but he didn't believe it. But I think he was fascinated by it in the sense of, like, the psychology behind it. Of, like, why do people like these? Yeah.
Sure.
Most of the stuff that you see about his, like, writings or stuff is that he was very into ghost stories as, like, a kid. Like, he was always into ghost stories. So he always liked the spooky stories. So maybe, like, that's how it kind of combines. He likes illusions. He likes supernatural stuff.
Right.
But the real world is something else. And he
the
has
real
dedicated
world isn't those illusions and everything. And now he's like going, how could this be real? That means that I have it all wrong. And the Doctor's just saying, well, you're just missing some stuff. There's always more stuff to learn. Yeah.
He says that he wanted to dedicate himself to be a force for good, and the real world, and he's telling him that the real world is a bunch of specters and jack-o'-lanterns, and he wants to know, ooh, I've wasted my life. But that's when the Doctor tells him, that like he just doesn't know everything yet. It's actually a fair point, Rachel, of combining our thoughts, because it is kind of like he was trying to tell these ghost stories to talk about the human condition of some kind. Like, A Christmas Carol is a perfect example of, like, being afraid of the afterlife and being afraid of the future is something that if you are afraid of the future, if you are afraid of the afterlife, you should be trying to use what you have now to do good for your fellow man or something, like that kind of an idea.
Yeah.
So I guess that's where it's like he's combining these thoughts of the supernatural and the fantastical with like real world practical, like do good or whatever.
Yeah. I can see that.
Rose starts helping Gwyneth, and for a while I was like, why is this scene going on so long? It gets there.
This episode itself kind of does drag a little bit. It's a little slow. The pacing isn't quite there.
It feels like a bottleneck episode with CGI that probably cost a fortune in it.
Potentially.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, potentially.
Because it was like, we got all these costumes from the latest Charles Dickens show. What can we use those for? We'll have them go back in time and meet Charles Dickens. That's brilliant. Brilliant. That was Kevin doing how this episode got made. Rose starts helping Gwen in like the laundry room or something and asks how much she gets paid. And she says, £8 a year. And she says, what, did you go to school? Because she says, like, I know, I would have taken 6. Should we do the old inflation calculator on this, Rachel?
Yeah, I mean, you can, because I don't really know how I would do that one.
Well, I got the Bank of England right here. Let's see. Can I go back to 1869? I can. We went to the moon in 1869.
Wow. Must have been a TARDIS.
Well, that would only be $788.94, or £788.94 approximately. But things cost a lot less back then, so you know.
Well, she's also a woman.
Also true. Well, that's when she asks. So Rose asks, "Did you go to school?" And she goes, "Of course I did. I'm not an urchin." She went every Sunday.
Yep.
They even did sums.
She got to learn some stuff, but
I guess it's supposed to show, like, back in Cardiff, back in that day, like, of course, you just went to school, like, once a week. Like, what you gotta go help out on the fucking farm or, try to stay alive or whatever.
Right.
So.
But I think Rose is also just trying to connect with her in some way.
Yeah,
like...
they're bonding, yeah.
Oh,
She's trying to bond with her. They bond over hating school. Everyone in this' teeth are too good for 1869 Cardiff.
Potentially.
Yeah, no. These people's teeth would be all fucked up. They try to bond over boys. They do. They basically bond over boys.
Yes.
And I think in 1869, because Rose asks Gwyneth if she has her eye on a boy, and I think that means that if you have your eye on a boy, you have to marry him, or they are legally allowed to shoot you. I think that's how that works.
You know, that makes sense. I wouldn't put it past him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. If your eyes are wandering...
Both sides.
Probably.
Yeah. Rose
Shotgun
asks...
weddings.
Where do you think we got the term from? Rose asks if he has a nice bum, and that she should ask this guy out.
Yeah, because it's like a nice smile and a nice bum.
Yeah.
Make him some tea.
I don't know if asking a guy out in 1869 would have been okay.
No.
But...
I wouldn't think so, honestly. I would imagine, putting yourself out there, yes, but, you can't just outright do anything about it.
No,
he has to do that.
Has to actively ask, yes.
So, what she says, make him a cup of tea or something. I was like, there you go.
Just make him a cup of tea and then grab his bum. Rose tells Gwyneth that she needs something more than Sneed in her life. And Gwyneth says that, she lost her parents when she was 12, but we'll see them again when she dies. And she says maybe Rose's dad will be there too. That's when we get into the exposition or the plot continuance part of this scene, because then Rose is like, how'd you know my dad is dead? And she's like, maybe the doctor said something about it. Rose is like, he's been dead for a while.
Right.
The doctor doesn't,
I haven't mentioned
I didn't tell
anything.
the doctor that either.
Yes.
And she's like, you've been thinking about him a lot lately. And so, at this point, she kind of, reveals herself as being a psychic. I kind of wonder if, because they were bonding, so she's like, okay, I can, reveal this to her.
Yeah, I think part of it popped out, obviously. The part about the dad popped out.
Right, so then she's like, fuck it.
Because it came really natural, and then she's just like, it's just one of those things where I think too much, and it just kind of, I feel it, no big deal.
So spacey. Yeah. And she says, you've come a long way. You're
and
from
then
London.
Now it's like coming out of her, she just can feel everything.
She says this, and I only caught it the second time because I saw it in the next episode too, and I have no idea what the hell they're talking about. I assume it has something to do with the the overall arc of the series, because she says you're from London, and she basically says what the future sees like, and she goes, but you've flown farther than everyone.
Yes.
The darkness, and she goes, the big bad wolf. And she, steps back and,
looks scared.
Is, scared.
Yeah.
Which comes back in the next episode because a kid graffitis the TARDIS, and it also says Big Bad Wolf. So I'm assuming that's something that... Oh, it says Bad Wolf. So I'm assuming that has something to do with, the overall arc. Rachel will not tell me because she wants it to be a surprise.
It's interesting, though, isn't it? Like that this weird phrase keeps
that's
coming
how they're
up.
trying to connect them all. Yeah. They decide to do a seance. Dickens doesn't want anything to do with it because it's garbage.
Well, you're skipping the part where the doctor comes in and says you must have lived on top of the rift, so it like became a part of her.
Oh, interesting. Oh, because she like grew up in this house.
I believe so, right? Wasn't it this house?
Yeah. Yeah, because if
like,
her parents died when
she
she
had
was
it
12,
ever since she was a little girl.
This guy brought her in when she was young. Okay.
So it kind of like connected with her, and it like now that's why she's able to do the things she can like see and hear, and yes.
So that's why they decided to do a seance, because they're like, well, if you can talk to them, then we can talk back to them like through you, like via a seance.
The idea of a seance.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So they do one. Dickens doesn't want to do it, but he's like, fine, because the doctor's like, come on, Charles, like what's the harm here? Like we're just gonna like try this and like just like be open-minded about it.
Yeah, maybe he is way more skeptical than I saw him at first. You're right.
He's very skeptical.
Yeah. He kind of pushes back a lot.
Mm-hmm. The doctor does a joke here because he says, I love a happy medium.
Yes. Well, even Rose
calls him out on it. Yeah. Gwen reaches out to the spirits, and the spirits come. And she sees them, and we see blue smoke and lights are just going nuts, and then they start like floating around the room. The doctor says, it can't get through the rift. You're controlling it. They're not controlling you. You're controlling it. You have to like let them through. So she makes a link, and we get a Ghostbusters-esque effect 20 years after Ghostbusters came out with these beings that are like all blue and look kind of angelic, I guess I would say.
Yes. Shapes. You can't really...
Yeah.
you can see through them. They're made of the smoke.
They look like... Yeah, and they look like human shapes. Angels or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
The Undertaker, Mr. Sneed, is like, oh my god, it's like the other side. And the doctor says, other side of the universe, actually.
Yeah, he's like, it's not death, it's alien.
Yeah, it's some sort of alien. So they say that they're the Gelf, and they want the rift open, because once they had a physical form, but the Time War happened, and it wasted away their bodies. And their plan is to use the corpses, because nobody's using the corpses, they're all already gone, but they could get in them, and then they could just use the bodies of the dead that have been abandoned.
Yes.
Rose does not like this plan because she does not want to disrespect the bodies, because she's, thinking about the fact that
it's one of those things where it's like in our psychology it's like, well, you can't use the dead body because that would be desecrating.
Yeah, you're desecrating
the
dead.
Corpse.
You're essentially committing necrophilia.
I mean, impossible if they were living and then they go off and do stuff.
I guess that's true. Oh, God. I need to get in this body so that I can find a woman.
No.
Dickens laments that it's all true. He, cannot believe that all of this is, actually happening. Gwen kind of passed out because of this, of, having to do this. She ends up waking up and thinking that her angels need her. Did the angels need me, doctor?
Yes.
And the doctor tells her, you need to do this. If you do this, you could save them.
Right.
I cannot believe. The first time I watched this, Rachel, I was like, does the doctor not realize he's getting played here? I knew what the twist that was coming. I was like, guys,
I think he's always hopeful to save another species, especially if it has something to do with the Time War.
That's what I figured, that he's blinded by the fact that it's the Time War.
And they may have known he was the doctor and that maybe he was a part of it because he's a Time Lord.
Sure. And they subtly do, when they mention the Time War, Rose looks at the doctor to kind of get his reaction. I can't remember if he looks back at her or not, but he does look uncomfortable about the fact that they brought up the Time War.
Yeah, a little bit more uneasy. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that could be a way to kind of say why he doesn't see through this very thinly veiled.
Yeah, it starts to blind him because he wants to save an entire species from death.
And because of what happened to him and
right,
stuff too.
Exactly.
I can't remember if there's any line in this where they I wish Rose would have said because they end up arguing about using the bodies, because the Undertaker's like, are they, what are they? And Doctor says they're aliens. And and Mr. Steed goes, foreigners? And he's like, yeah, pretty foreign. But Rose says, like, you can't do this because they're bodies. They're like our bodies. And he says, it's like recycling, though. And she's like, yeah, but those bodies were living. We have to respect them. And he says, do you have a donor card? And she goes, that's different. And he goes, yeah, it is different. It's a completely different mortality than, like, what you're used to. So, like, either come on board with me or go home.
Yeah, because he's
so,
pretty
like,
much saying, like, he doesn't have time
righteous.
for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So, again, it's another one of, like, his, like, no, I'm right, you're wrong kind of thing.
Yes.
I would have liked if, knowing that the Time War came up with the Gelth saying that, if Rose would have been like, I get that this is personal for you. I get that this is like your crusade, but you have to think a little more logically.
Early for that, for her.
For her to kind of fight back.
Okay. Yes, because she's kind of pushing back here, right? She is pushing.
She is.
But it's like the start of that. Like she might push back more. She might be like, kind of keeping him on track. Like.
Okay.
But I feel like it's too early. Like, it's one of those relationship things where it's like, how much can I push and say without being a dick?
Strong-willed enough to, like, tell him back, like, to talk back to him. I guess she's also 19, so she's not going to be the most, like...
So she sounds a little bit more naive.
Yeah, she's more naive than the mid-30s guy saying, like, oh, yeah, well, you're only doing that. Can you not tell that they're evil beings? I can tell that they're evil beings.
We all can tell that they're evil beings.
All of us. Dickens is over there.
They said
the words. In the corner, drinking his brandy. He knows that they're evil.
Nobody wants to listen to him. They said pity us. There's something about the fact that they're like truly trying to make everybody feel bad. Like, oh yeah, we're dying and pity us. And oh, we need to live. Like, it's the way that they're going about it. It just feels like, ooh, wait a minute.
Ew. So all of this happens, and then Rose says that you can't do this because you can't do this to Gwyneth. Like, what if something happens to her? And Gwyneth is like, don't I get a say? And she's like, I know you think I'm stupid. I don't think that Rose thinks that she's stupid. I think that she thinks she's naive because she's like, no, you just don't understand like what the doctor is and like all this shit. Yeah.
You're thinking they're angels and they're actually aliens and then they want to use these bodies. Like, are you understanding the whole picture?
Yeah, Rose should have just lived up to it and like, yeah, you are stupid. You're a stupid girl. I'm just a stupid girl.
Call somebody stupid. I just go around with the doctor and the TARDIS going, you're stupid. You don't know anything. I've been in the TARDIS. I've seen things.
Been in the TARDIS. I saw the world blow up.
You don't understand.
She's like, I know where you come from is way different and like your values are very different, but I want to do this because like this is what I believe in. He asks for where most ghosts have been seen, and the Undertaker says that it was the morgue. And of course they're like, of course it's the fucking morgue.
Well, of course it's the morgue. They're all going for those bodies in the morgue. So Rose says to the doctor, she goes, well, this doesn't actually work. We know that the Gelf don't succeed because there's no corpses just walking around in my time.
And the doctor says that,
or
like,
even after
the time can change,
like in the history books.
This is where he explains that time can change at any time,
right?
Or history can change at any time. They come in. The Gelf say, "Praise the doctor, praise him." So to your point, Rachel, they might know who he is.
I think they know who he is, and they're just playing on his like his better nature type of thing.
Yeah,
of I want to save people.
Yeah. The doctor says he's going to take them after they transfer into these bodies. He's going to take them somewhere where they can get a more permanent physical form, and that this is just temporary. Because I think he realizes that it's pretty fucked up to do this.
Yeah, it's a little weird.
He's like...
And, like, how would the body... Like, does it function afterwards? Does it decay still, like, as much as it's going to? There's a lot of, like, little pieces to that one.
Mm. We find out that the weak point is beneath the arch, so Gwen needs to stand and establish a bridge underneath the arch. And it starts, and they start coming out, and then to no one's surprise, except for the people in this story, they're, like, evil demonic beings. So they,
oh my god, yeah, they, like, turn red and become demonic. Like...
Yeah. Yeah, they turn her at like the main
voice
one like
becomes like rah, rah, rah.
the main one looks like a Doom villain all of a sudden.
Yes.
It's like, we're here to kill you.
Yes.
So their plan was not to just take over all the dead. They want to take over everyone. They want to take over the human race.
Right, they
because
want to
there's
destroy
actually
the world.
billions. They have billions of Gelth.
Right.
They're not just these like
The small
10 left over. Yeah. It's a fairly dark thing, and it's a fairly dark reveal. That would be good for like a ghost story Christmas thing. If it was a little more Christmassy, because it's like Christmas Eve or whatever. But like, I guess the setting just allows
the
it.
setting
With Charles
is
Dickens.
Christmassy, but this is
Yeah.
not a Doctor Who Christmas special.
No, no. But with Charles Dickens and it being Christmas Eve,
Oh,
like,
yeah.
and the ghosts and stuff, like you could see it being that way. If you were a kid, I could see this being spooky.
Oh, sure.
Like, there's enough spooky stuff in this
the way
throughout
like
this
the
episode.
characters look when they're like dead and taken over by the Gelf, it's like creepy. They look like
Yeah.
zombies.
Yeah, it's got the zombie effect and everything like that. I could see how this could be a spookier episode for kids. The Undertaker tries to get Gwyneth to stop it, but then he gets taken over and they like let a Gelf
I
take
think they
over his
killed
body.
him
I
and
think they
took
killed
over the
him.
body. Yeah. It's like remove his soul to put another in.
Yeah, pretty much. Mm-hmm. So Sneed stands back up and he's like, "We are legion and we are many," and essentially does that.
He pretty much does, yes.
They will take out the whole human race, they say, and then Dickens is like, "This new world is too much," and books it out of this morgue.
Yes. Yep.
In the
He's like,
meantime-
he couldn't do it.
Yeah, he's just like, "Fuck this," and runs out. Rose and the Doctor stay behind and end up behind this, like, dungeon. What is this?
I don't know. I mean, I would assume it's just like another, like maybe it's an area to burn bodies or something.
A crematorium
Yeah.
space.
That's kind of what I'm thinking. And so they keep it locked up, for like idiots that
I will
break in.
I'll give that to you, because I was like, why is there
Or
this
maybe
dungeon?
there's all those like catacombs
Is Sneed
and stuff.
doing some stuff? Is he a serial killer?
Well, there's probably catacombs and stuff down there, maybe for extra body storage.
We've got extra bodies
I don't
this
know.
month. We had the plague again. We're going to need to put the extra body storage out.
It's cold down there, I don't know. What do you want me from
It is
me?
cold down there, yeah. The Doctor's like, "I pitied you." And they're like, "We don't want your pity. We just want your flesh."
Right.
And
And
then
then
he's
like,
like-
we don't care.
Yeah, so Dickens is being chased by a blue spirit across the street. It like kind of comes, it seeps out of the door and it starts like chasing him down the street.
I liked the little effect. I know what they were going for.
Because of
Kind
the
of like-
on the door.
Yeah,
knob,
it like
yeah,
sweeps
yeah.
around the door knocker and he stares
It does
at
it does the Marley thing. Yeah,
Yes.
definitely. Rose says she can't die because she hasn't been born yet. And Dickens is like, "That is not how this works." Or not Dickens. The Doctor is like, "Yeah, that's not how this works."
It's 1869. How can I die now?
Time isn't a straight line. It can twist into any shape. You can be born in the 20th century and die in the 19th, and it's all my fault. I brought you here.
It's not your fault. I wanted to come.
What about me? I saw the fall of Troy, World War V. I pushed boxes at the Boston Tea Party. Now I'm gonna die in a dungeon. In Cardiff.
So again, that like fucking Cardiff, man.
Right. Maybe it's just not like a fun, fancy place. I don't know.
I have a feeling it is like a Cleveland or a Detroit.
Just
like,
kinda
that-
dumpy.
It's got that vibe. I don't know. The only thing I know about it is they did a WWE pay-per-view there last year.
In Cardiff?
Yeah,
That's kind of interesting.
Drew McIntyre fought Roman.
Well, that sounds about right.
As Dickens is running across the street, one of the ghosts or one of the Gelf gets caught by the gas lamp because like the gas kind of like sucks them in because they like don't if they
They're kind
can't
of,
get
like,
into
I
a
think
body.
they're made of the same like substance. It's got to have like the same weight or something, and so that's why it
Yeah.
must work that way.
And it sucks into the lamp. So then Dickens gets this idea, and he comes back in. He starts turning on all the gas on all of the lamps as he kind of comes back down into the dungeon. Rose and the Doctor say that they're going to go down fighting, and that they're both glad that they met each other. And then they like do the hold hand thing. And Dickens comes back in and says, turn off the flame and up the gas because they're going to flood the place. And he's like, because if we do, then, again, like, is Charles Dickens a scientist all of a sudden, too? I mean, I guess you could just know this because, like, he's an educated, like, person.
Yeah.
But it's funny, like, it's an interesting character to use when, like, you probably needed, like, more of a scientist than an author.
Probably,
but they wanted him for the ghost story aspect.
I think part maybe he's just thinking in story like, you know, oh, in a story, the ghost got sucked into the gas. The gas must be the answer, and then like just goes, I'm just gonna gas the place. Like he doesn't really know any of the science about it. He's just going, but the gas, and then then the doctor kind of goes, there we go. Wait a minute, he's the scientist.
So he says it'll draw them out and of the host and into the room like sucking like the poison out.
Charles like a poison of a wound. Yeah.
Yeah. Charles hopes that it will be like his theory is going to be validated soon because then they all start trying to like walk after. An interesting thing about these Gelth when they take over these bodies, are they all just going to be walking around like zombies? Like, wouldn't you rather be floating? Or can you take over a living body and you won't be this like zombified state?
You saw that, why would you want to be saw that
I'd rather be the gaseous thing.
We saw that with Snee.
But we think that they killed him.
Yeah, but I think they have to kill him to take over the body. I don't know if they can take the body with the person still living. Because that would mean that it's like the host has two in it instead of just one, right?
I suppose.
One would be fighting for dominance the whole time. You can't have that. That's just
I guess they
tiring.
need a physical form because they say they're dying as a gaseous state, which we're taking their word for it, and they're evil, so it's hard to...
I guess, yeah, sure, they're evil. I mean, they might be just saying they're dying. We don't even know if they're dying on the other side. They're coming here, and here they might need to have a physical form. Mm-hmm. So that might be part of it, because of our atmosphere.
Sure. Just saying, like, if given the option, I'll take the gaseous form.
Oh, sure.
Instead of walking around like a zombie.
I agree on that one.
As long as I go to the coffee shop. It's from Seinfeld.
Oh, okay.
Kramer, when they're doing the living will, and Elaine's like, "You can eat. The machines do everything else." And Elaine goes, "I'd stick." And he goes, "Yeah, let's stick, because I could still go to the coffee shop." So they all get sucked out, and they become the gaseous state again. Rose and the doctor exit the barricade. Charles very mundanely says, "It's working." And then the doctor says to Gwen to send
Well, I think because all of the bodies fell at that point, so he's like, okay, good, it's working. But he's also trying to not breathe in this gas.
Oh, yeah, they don't want to, they're trying not to breathe in all the gas. Yeah, you're right. The doctor says to Gwen to send them back, and Gwen says that she can't, but she can hold them here. And I thought for a second she was giving them something, because then she's clearly like going to kill herself to save them. And...
Right.
Rose is like,
she's sacrificing herself.
But then I realized it's a matchbox, so she's going to blow up the place.
Exactly.
Doctor's like, Charles, get Rose out of here. Rose won't leave, and then she finally does with him. And then the doctor kind of like feels Gwen's pulse or like neck or something. He kisses her forehead, says, "I'm sorry," and then leaves her to blow up the place so that the Gelth can't get through. So
and
the Gelth are like
one
stuck.
Has died.
Yep, because death follows the doctor.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the Gelth are going to be forever because they're kind of like stuck now in this like rift between the worlds, I guess, is kind of the idea.
Probably, maybe. That sounds about right. Or maybe they are dying and they can't live as the
yeah, or they just will die. Yeah. This is the second explosion of the season. It is as CGI as the first. They use like the glowing lights and everything on the three characters to kind of like show that there's like a fire going on.
Yes.
You could tell it was kind of like a cheaper way to do it, but it gets the effect across.
Oh, yeah. It's got like that, flickering effect.
The doctor reveals that Gwyneth was already dead. She had been dead for at least 5 minutes, and he thinks that she was dead the second that she walked into that arch, which is what...
more than 5 minutes, but yeah.
Well, it's what Rose was afraid of, too. Like, that's what Rose was trying to prevent. Charles learns a lesson, right? He learns that there's more than heaven and earth than in the philosophy that Rose is thinking of, or like the mythology that Rose is thinking of. And he goes, even for you, Doctor. So he like even says like, you might think that you know everything, Doctor, but clearly you don't. That's what I was getting out of that. Like, there's still even stuff for you to learn,
right?
Based on this. And Rose says, no one will know that the servant girl saved the world. And then the three stand in respect. They get to the TARDIS, and the Doctor tells Charles he needs to go in his shed. And Charles says,
just gotta go in my shed real quick.
I'm going to spend Christmas with my family, and I'm going to make amends, so maybe he's going to go find his institutionalized wife or whatever.
And say, can I come in?
I'm going to the crazy house to get my wife out of it. She was never institutionalized based on this Wikipedia article, but, you know, we can have fun.
He tried. He tried.
He tried.
She probably has like some papers that say you have to stay.
I'm not crazy.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
He has to stay so far away. She's got like a
restraining order.
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
the
so
word.
like this is a Jake Taylor, Lynn
got a
situation.
restraining order.
He's gonna show up and they're gonna play that music.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah. I would. Oh, now I think the better ending would be that he's back on stage finishing the Christmas Carol, and then she sees her in the audience,
and then she's in the audience.
Out,
yes.
Drags her up on stage. Yep, there it is.
Perfect.
He thought he knew everything, but now there's so much more to write about, says Charles. Like, he thinks that he can tell these stories about how fantastical the world is, but he'll be subtle. So for his new story, or his last story, the killer will not be from this earth.
Right.
And he can spread the word that way.
Of the
and then they go
elementals, the way he says it. I mean, I guess he's right.
Yeah, that's kind of what they are. They leave, and Rose kisses him on the cheek, which of course gives Charles Dickens a stiffy.
Ah, ew. Ew.
He says, oh, how modern. I loved that he did say how modern.
Yes.
I would have thought that would have been something done more back then than in today's world.
Kisses on the cheek, sure. But I'm wondering if that's still kind of inappropriate because they don't really know each other.
Interesting. Okay.
I don't know. I don't really know how that, like, what the whole social aspect of the kisses on the cheek
Maybe it's
means.
supposed to be more of like the guy would kiss the woman on the cheek.
That feels...
So like now that she's doing it, it's like a modern thing. Okay.
There we go. Yeah, it's like if she wore her jeans.
Yeah. They say goodbye, and Charles is like, how is this goodbye? And then they're like, wait, where are you going? And he's like, another riddle with you, Doctor. Like, everything with you is just a riddle. And then
but
before
it got
they
him excited.
Leave,
he's just like, oh, another riddle?
He's like, okay, I guess it's another riddle. And then he goes, Doctor, I need to know. Do people still read my writings? Yeah, they do. And he goes, well, how long do they last? And he goes, forever. It was a touching little moment for Charles Dickens. I thought that was kind of nice. Like, he tries to be modest about the idea that, like, his books are going to last forever. Like you can tell he's pleased that, like, his books have endured.
Right.
Which is a nice thought, you know, like it's a nice little moment.
It's it's nice for somebody who makes something like that, who hopes that their word and everything does get to last longer than them.
Right. Nothing will last as long as shelf life, of course.
Of course.
But that's just
we already know this is
that's just the way it goes. Of course. There's some gaseous being listening to this now in the year 4500.
We hope. Well, I mean, if you're evil, that's also okay.
Whatever.
You're still listening.
We can't help it, but try not to be evil.
I mean, don't be like super evil.
No, just don't be evil. You can change yourself. It's fine. Charles.
All right, fine. Don't be evil.
Yeah. Charles then asks, "Who are you?" to the Doctor, and the Doctor says, "Just a friend passing through." And I assume, Rachel, if it's not, it should be. It should be a thing that he uses all the time. He should say, just a friend passing through all the time when someone asks him who he is. Rachel,
I want to say he does say he's a friend.
Maybe.
I think I feel like he does say that a lot, that he's just like a friend.
When they get back in the TARDIS, Rose asks won't this change history if he writes about aliens in 1870? And Doctor's like, he's going to be dead within like 5 months. I wouldn't worry about that.
It's so depressing. It's like, he tries, but never gets written.
And then Doctor's like, but we can give him like one last surprise, like a one for the road type of thing.
Right.
So like the TARDIS vanishes and Charles laughs down the street at another crazy thing happening to him. He's had a long day.
Oh my God, yes.
He walks down the street like the Joker in The Dark Knight with his like
his arms wide.
Extended, like ha 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 ha. You know what scene I'm talking about.
I do know what scene you're talking about.
That's how he's walking.
He is. He's got his arms outstretched. He looks like jovial, I think is the word I would use. And then does the God bless us, everyone. God bless you. God bless you. As he's like walking around. So he's got a new step, like a perk in his step right there.
Yeah,
and
he's
not
a song
as
in his
brooding.
heart. Yeah. And that's the end of the Unquiet Dead. Rachel, what'd you think about this one?
Do you want to say first, or do you want me to talk about it first?
I mean, I can. So I guess I should start these Doctor Who's, since you have...
I feel like you should, because I have a history.
A long-standing history with it. I wrote down, what the fuck, why? But then I wrote down, like, it's a fine little, like, episode. It's got a nice tone to it. Mm-hmm. It's a little slow. I don't know if I would actually see myself going back to watch this one.
Sure.
It just kind of is. It's just kind of like there. It felt like filler, but I think that's kind of what a lot of Doctor Who is supposed to be. Just like these little. You know what it felt like?
Okay.
It felt like this could be on PBS, which for our international listeners, PBS is the like Doctor Who would be on PBS if it was in the States. It's the public broadcasting system where like Sesame Street and Mr. Rogers and stuff were on. That's what this felt like to me, like an episode that would be on PBS.
Yeah, I could,
because you got like that Victorian costumes and stuff. It felt like Wishbone could have showed up at any moment.
Yeah, kind of Wishbone-y. I could see that.
I didn't mind this one at all necessarily.
I think
but
it's okay.
I'm not gonna go back and like see it again. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I obviously go back and see it because I like.
You watch them all.
Everybody knows I like Doctor Who as a whole, so I can't hide that one. But it is a slower one. It kind of is a bit more in the background and kind of just like happens. There's not as much like excitement to it. So, I mean, I get what you're saying. The Charles Dickens part is kind of silly, especially now that I'm like looking at it like, yeah, he is extremely skeptical. You'd think he'd be like, all right, I'll roll with it. Like, what's going on? But he seems more like, no, this is stupid. This isn't real. Prove it. Well, like,
his arc is supposed to be like an old bitter man,
right?
Finding like some more life and like vigor to like learn new things.
Yeah,
so like from that standpoint, it's all right.
Yeah, the story idea and like the sentiment is nice.
It being Charles Dickens is the part where it's like, does that make sense?
Well, I think the thing with the ghosts and stuff is why.
Yeah, ghosts.
The ghosts.
Lots of ghosts.
Get all the ghosts in there.
Yeah, we put some ghosts in the Doctor Who there. So that is The Unquiet Dead, the third episode of Series 1 of Doctor Who. When we return after a short break, we will get into the next episode, which they revealed too much for me. When they do these like little like next week on Doctor Who's at the end of the episode, I kind of am like, stop doing that. You're revealing too much.
Don't watch those because they do kind of sometimes reveal too much. I know.